And welcome into the Wednesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay, but I'd like to congratulate LA Kings fans. I know it's going to be a tough loss in the Stanley Cup final next year, but you're going to the Stanley Cup final, Los Angeles Kings.
Apparently so.
Congratulations. That's exciting news.
Corey Perry, a longtime Anaheim Duck, now an LA King, which I'm sure will go over very well with Anaheim Ducks fans.
Yep,
good stuff.
Back in the that's right.
He also said yesterday in his press conference, it kind of feels like I'm coming home a little bit. I'm sure Ducks fans are like, oh, good, great.
Yeah.
Really hope you enjoy yourself with the LA Kings.
But let's not feel too bad for the Ducks fans.
That's true.
Kyle Granlund, 3 years, $21 million.
That's true.
Come on, baby.
Guy keeps getting big contracts. Good for him.
Disneyland was all abuzz yesterday.
Disneyland was fired up. It's going to be the Granlund and Roger McQueen show for the foreseeable future here.
There you go.
Anaheim. Joel Quenneville coming in. A lot of things going on out there in Anaheim, but Mikhail Granlund now the next part of it out there. You know you're in trouble as a free agency class when Mikhail Granlund's like the belle of the ball when it comes to center iceman. Not good.
Yeah. When he's one of the top headlines on the free agency day. Yeah.
I was thinking about this yesterday. I've been doing this for a long time at this point. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I remember every single July 1st and like the strength of every class. I don't know that I can just off the top of my head remember a free agency class that was as bad as that one yesterday. But I'm sure if you dug into it, you could find some similar ones. But it was pretty rough on the free agency front league wide yesterday. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot going on where your casual hockey fan would be like, "Oh, look at that." It just was not a very eventful day yesterday. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And you get, people like Besser staying, and obviously the Florida guy staying. So it's even like some of the possible big moves or big movements didn't happen too. So
I am looking forward to the Victor Arvidsson, Tanner Jeannot combo in Boston, though.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll play together.
How about RV Hustle in Boston?
Yeah, we'll see what that looks like. The Predators make one move yesterday, and Adam Vingan rejoicing. He's been trying to get Barry Trotz to sign this guy for like 2 weeks. So
he
has. Nick Perbix, the newest member of the Nashville Predators, adding to the blue line and bringing in a right shot, which they desperately needed. So Nick Perbix signs a 2-year deal. And, Joe, honestly, it's a 2-year, $275 million annual average value. I really like it. Like, there's not a ton of risk to it. It's not a long-term contract. It's not very expensive. He's got the same cap hit they were paying Luke Schenn last year. So it's not a very expensive deal. Perbix is 27. And look, it's not like they just acquired, Shea Weber or something like that. But he's a guy that has played 3 years for Tampa Bay and 2 years ago spent significant time with Victor Hedman. So he has played in an elevated role before. Probably not, exactly where you want him. And last year he was more of a third pair guy, but he is a right shot defenseman. He's 6'4", which continues kind of the theme of what Barry Trotz is trying to do there. So you look at the major defensemen that they've added either via trade or free agency the last 2 years. Brady Shea, 6'3", Nick Hague is 6'6", and now Perbix is 6'4". So a pretty clear emphasis here from Barry Trotz of trying to get bigger on the back end.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, is it bad if I say I like him better than Nick Hague?
I don't think it's bad, no.
It's crazy to see them bring in a baby like this, 27-year-old.
Yeah, 27 years old. It's like,
but no, I needed a right shot guy, and I think you were saying yesterday, what is this going to look like? You kind of broke it down. Makes a little more sense now.
Yeah, and it gives you some more options now too. Like I don't think that this removes Tanner Molendyk from having a chance to make the team. I mean, it makes it a little harder. It's one more spot that's now spoken for on the back end. I mean, I think that these 5 guys are making the team. Like Yossi, Shea, Hague, Perbix, and I would probably throw Barron in there too, are all making the team. So that's 5 spots on defense right there. I feel pretty good about Willsby making it, especially if he's healthy. Number one, Trotz loves him. Number two, when he was in there last year, to me, there was a big difference between like the way Willsby played and the way guys like Del Gaizo and Stasny and all those guys played. Like Willsby was way better than those guys. So I think he's going to make it. So that's 6. So you're already talking about 6 spots there. Could they keep 8 defensemen? So Molendijk would have to get one of those other 2 spots. And then you have to sort through Stasny, Osterley. You've got England that they also signed back there. So there's some stuff you got to sort through on the back end. But I don't think this precludes Tanner Molendijk from making the team. But they desperately needed another guy that's a right shot guy to put over there.
Yeah. Competition's not bad.
No, not bad.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, and, Barry Trotz talked yesterday. He got to a lot of things that we were going to hit on throughout the show today. And, I mean, he talked about UC Saros taking too much heat last year. He talked about Brady Martin potentially making the team out of camp. I mean, he went through a lot of things yesterday. So we got a lot to talk about on the Barry Trotz front. But, one of the things he also talked about was Nick Hague. And he just outright said it. Like, I asked him about paying him $5.5 million per year. And he was like, well, the cap's going up. And he's like, he's a 6'6", left-hand shot, 25-year-old defenseman, and we think he's a top 4 guy. So if you break it down that way, and he's a top 4 guy like we think he is, the money's going to come in probably pretty cheap with the way the cap is going. Now, most people who have seen Nick Hague, and certainly the analytics community, does not agree with Barry Trotz's assessment there. But if he's right, then I understand the logic behind it. But they clearly believe that he was kind of stuck in a situation in Vegas where he had really good defensemen in front of him, and he's going to be able to play a higher role here. He did play pretty well in the playoffs for them. So they're taking a shot that Nick Hague is going to be a top 4 guy for them that plays significant minutes. And now the question is going to be, well, are they right in their evaluation or are they wrong? But he laid it out. Like, it ain't, when they signed him, I was like, man, that's a lot of money for a third pair defenseman. Well, he ain't going to be a third pair defenseman for them, clearly. That's according to Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz laid it out yesterday.
Is that a mandate for Andrew Burnett?
I don't know. I don't know.
So this is like Seth Jones going to from here to Columbus. Is that what this is? Pretty similar. Similar idea.
I guess so. Look, I'm intrigued by Nick Hague. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've spent a ton of time in my life watching Nick Hague. I am familiar with him. I've watched some of him, but I'm not a Nick Hague expert. But I'm very interested to see if he can handle what Barry Trotz is throwing out there that he can handle.
Yeah, it's a great, this is a test of, analytics. We've talked about this with the backup goalie whose name now eludes me, but, when they signed him, it was every underlying number says, yeah, thank you. How does that elude me? I don't know. 6:09 a.m. But, all the underlying numbers along with just the traditional stats were like, what are you possibly thinking here? And it turned out to be a good set. So maybe this will be a similar situation where it's like they have information or analysis that is just beyond what the general hockey media community has.
Well, and Adam Vingan was telling me yesterday on the phone, I was talking to him about, the Nick Perbix signing, and that AR, whatever the analytics site he sent me the other day, and I will find it here in a second. But we talked about the analytics that he sent over on Nick Hague, and that site was like basically, we don't have a comp for this. We're usually able to
for this contract.
We're at least usually able to generate a comparison, even if we don't necessarily agree with the contract. And this one was just like, we don't really have a comp for Nick Hague. And apparently, according to Adam yesterday, they predicted Nick Perbix in free agency was going to get like a 2-year contract with a $2.60 million cap hit. So they're pretty close on the Nick Perbix deal. So not that means everything at the end of the day. And by the way, it's AFP Analytics. I found the site there. So AFP Analytics. It doesn't mean that they're right about everything, but it does kind of show you that sometimes you can use those things to get pretty close on what a contract is going to look like.
Yeah. K. Dot on the YouTube chat is asking, did Barry cook? And then Lop says he's cooking for the mushy middle. Woohoo! Did he cook? Did he maybe did he boil water with this? Was this boiling water?
With this particular signing? Like, if you just want to isolate it to Perbix yesterday, I like it. I really do. Like, I don't. There's a lot of things that Barry Trotz has done where over the past calendar year, if you're a Predators fan and you're upset by it, I get it. Yesterday, I don't really know that there's much risk to it. Like, it's a 2-year deal for $275 million for a right shot defenseman who, again, is not some all-star out there, but he's a serviceable player. He can play kind of in different spots for you if you need him to. I don't think there's a ton of I don't think there are Predators fans out there that should really have a problem with Perbix yesterday.
It's a solid signing that makes sense. You don't want this to be the highlight of July, but it's a solid signing that makes sense. For all of you asking for a gout check, it's getting a little, it's close, okay? And I hope Jared's wrong that he says it causes memory loss. I've never heard that. Are you joking, Jared?
I think he's joking.
Okay, good.
I think he's joking.
That would really be bad if it causes memory loss, but it would make sense. It would add up.
Likinen, who's that?
So who was that big guy? He used to play goalie for the Preds.
I think his number was 35.
It's getting better. Thank you for asking, guys.
Another thing Barry Trotz talked about yesterday, and we're going to get into this a little bit more throughout the show, but he talked about basically the way that they're going to have to win. And if you're looking at their roster right now, you can see a pretty glaring hole. And he talked about that. We'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
So your center depth, Ryan O'Reilly, Fedor Svechkov, Eric Halla, Michael McCarron, those are just the four that come to mind.
It's four that we have.
You've said you want to win this year. Do you think that center depth, that lineup is good enough to win this year?
Well, I think, there's different ways to do it. I know that, as I said, I've had different experiences. You have to adjust and have the commitment from the whole group. If you look at it on paper, it's not a deep center group. There's no question. So how do you do that? You got to play. You can win with really good defense. I did that for years. You do that with a team commitment to defense, and you've got to be really, really, really dangerous off the wings. I think we can do that with what we have. Now, at the center ice position, you're going to have to be reliable, and you're going to have to be strong defensively and committed to be on the right side of the pucks. Having your defense, having a little more, I'll say a little more length and size will help that. So it's going to be, you have to be the mentality. It has to be just dividing.
That was Barry Trotz yesterday talking about his center ice depth there. So a few things that he says there, Joe. First off, Alex Doherty laid out, who we will have on the show later today at 7:15, laid out Ryan O'Reilly, Fedor Svechkov, Eric Halla, Michael McCarron. Those are just the four centers that come to mind. And Barry Trotz goes, well, those are the four that we have. So good to know.
You got it right. Ding, ding, ding.
You nailed it.
You got centers for 400, Alex.
You nailed it. Which,
Any more brain busters?
which was absolutely hilarious. So it took all I had not to just start laughing in the middle of that. But beyond that, Barry Trotz acknowledging yesterday that, look, if you look at their center ice depth right now on paper, it ain't good. Like it's not something you get overly excited about if you're a Predators fan. So he talks about, you're going to have to find different ways to win. And they are clearly leaning into defense, and they clearly think defense was a huge problem for them last year, which, by the way, it was. Like, it's not a groundbreaking thing. We've talked about that. Their defense was bad last year. Pretty much everything they did was bad last year, particularly at 5-on-5.
Yeah,
so
don't forget their offense.
yeah, that's how you end up 30th in the league when you have that combination. So he talks there about, adding the size on defense, defending better, and how that's going to help the whole picture. It says also you have to be really dangerous off the wing there, and he thinks this group can do it. So what do you make of what Trotz had to say about the center depth and the different ways they're going to try to win?
Remember back when we had to win every game 2-1? Let's do that again. That's what came to mind for me. Maybe I'm being a little negative.
I mean, he did point out, they used to win games that way.
They did.
Yeah.
I know. So
Quite the 180 from last year.
Yeah.
From the brunette system to, hey, let's lock it down and feel like 98 again.
Yeah.
I mean, Brunette wants to play defense too, but yeah, that's the reality of the roster. So I guess you have to try to find other ways, right?
Well, I guess my real question there is, how dangerous can they be off the wing? Because I would agree, like Philip Forsberg can be dangerous off the wing.
Can he score 70 goals this year?
How dangerous is Steven Stamkos going to be off the wing playing with Fedor Svechkov? Because, I don't know that's exactly who he's going to play with. But, I mean, Trotz was on with Jared last week and talked about, where they're at center right now. And right now, the best option for your second-line center is probably Svechkov. And, frankly, I don't feel very good about that because I don't think Svechkov is ready for that. But I guess we'll see, because your other options to play second-line center right now are Eric Halla and Michael McCarron, and I don't want to see either one of those guys playing second-line center. So it's going to have to be Svechkov, or I guess you could move Stamkos back to it, which they don't want to do. And Barry Trotz said that last week, that he does not want Stamkos playing center. So, I mean, right now I would assume, and we'll see exactly what their line combinations look like, but I mean, Stamkos has been a left winger. Forsberg has been a left winger. You probably want those two separated from each other unless you just absolutely have to put them together. And they'll play together on the power play and all that. But like right now, if Forsberg is playing with O'Reilly, which he has done a lot of the last couple of years, who is Stamkos' centerman? And if it's Svechkov, being dangerous off the wing. At this point of Steven Stamkos' career, can he be that dangerous off the wing if he's playing with a centerman who may or may not be ready for that role?
Well, that's the thing. If you're 35-year-old Steven Stamkos and you've already brought up previous things he said and you heard that yesterday. I mean, look, you already know the state of the roster, but how does that make you feel at this point? That's tough, man. That's tough sledding. And you said Svechkov, you don't know if he's ready. Will he ever be ready? Is he going to be a top 6 player in the NHL?
I don't know.
At any point? Like on a viable team?
I don't know. I think he's got a chance, but I don't think it's certainty, right? Like, I could envision him being a really, really good third line center for a long time and maybe a second line. I don't think Svechkov is going to be like a number 1 center or anything like that. Now, granted, he doesn't have to be on this team, but I don't know. It seems like a lot.
Although a number 1
ask.
center would be nice.
That would be nice at some point. It seems like a lot to ask from Svechkov specifically. And look, last year he ended up playing, 50 games, somewhere around there, a little bit more than that. And that's valuable experience. And I am sure that even though it happened before Barry Trotz planned for it to last year, that's probably going to end up serving him pretty well in the long run to get that experience. But from strictly a production standpoint, and I fully realize it's more complicated than this. Last year he played 52 games. He had 17 points, 8 goals, 9 assists. I mean, you're asking him to be able to step into a top 6 role. I mean, you need him to get probably around like 40 points, 40, 45, somewhere in that area. And I just, is that going to be realistic from year 1 to year 2? And again, to your point, who's playing with him? And if it's Stamkos, who's the other winger? How are they feeling about all that right now? It just seems like, I understand the idea of like defense. If you defend better, it's going to help a lot of areas of your game. And I agree with that. And Barry Trotz talked about yesterday, like if you defend, you've always got a chance to win. And I understand what he's saying, but you also have to have center icemen in this league to win games. It has been demonstrated over and over and over again. And I really worry about where they're at with that right now.
So I feel like every day I'm like, when's like yesterday, it's like, okay, what's the last team like this that had some incredible turnaround without massive changes? What's the best weak down the middle team that you can think of recently?
I can't.
I can't think of a winning team that doesn't have. And again, not everybody has like a great
it doesn't
top
have to be
line
David
center,
Draisaitl, yeah.
But I mean, the weakness of this team in that spot, it's one of those things. Like it just doesn't work, right? I mean, like typically it has not worked,
right? And look, if you ask Ryan O'Reilly last year, he would probably tell you that he had just a horrible year because that's what he does. But I mean, if you look at it, he had 53 points, 21 goals, 32 assists.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player.
That's about what he is right now. And he's about to be 35 in February. So another thing I wonder about is that getting ready to take a step back?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not his fault, but he's 35 years old coming up.
Again, when he signed 2 years ago, at that point, you look to 2025, the presumption is he's downshifting because
whoever
fill in the blank, but the blank's not filled.
Right. So clearly, I mean, you can view that a couple of different ways. Number one, I think, like with the roster that they currently have, like you kind of have to play that way if you're the Predators, because if you're trying to go, if you're trying to just open it up offensively with your center ice depth that you've got right now, I just don't know that you're going to be equipped to do that. So I understand Barry Trotz answering the questions the way that he did yesterday. It continues to make me wonder throughout the offseason here, like, does he at some point decide I got to do something at center ice and maybe pay a price that I just don't want to bring somebody else in here to play? You know, just because that's their roster on July 1st down the middle doesn't mean that's their roster on September 15th. when camp is opening up.
You need to hope if you're a Preds fan that it's not.
So
but-
there's still a lot of time here to make deals. But as we've talked about, Joe, that's a really hard position to make significant deals in the league.
Yeah. I mean, the text line is, again, it's the familiar Matthew from Jolton. Tank, Gavin McKenna. Like I said, tank for the lottery is what you, and then
Yeah, I
hope.
hope you get lucky.
We got another question. David's asking about Rossi. What would it take to get Rossi? I mean, at least that would be something.
Yeah. What would it take to get him? I don't know. Like, you're also then going to have to sign. I think he's looking for like a 7-year deal at like 7-something million per year, which is fine. I'd look for it too if I was him. I still watch him and I'm like, yeah, he's good. Is he that good? And is he enough of a driver on a team where in the playoffs he can win for you?
So are you in a position where you need to start thinking about overpaying and gambling on someone young and just hoping that there's big steps ahead for them?
Maybe. Or like, do you look at and I don't know who this guy would be. I'm sure that if I really dig into it, I can find some candidates out there. But like, do you look at maybe an older guy in the high 20s, low 30s that I know people are getting excited right now, me just saying that has got 1 or 2 years left on their deal that you're willing to overpay for via trade to bring in right now to come help. And maybe they're not a superstar type player, but they can play second line center for you. And you just don't have a number 1 center. You've got a couple of number 2 centers in O'Reilly and whoever that guy would be. And you try to go from there, which would be a better spot than they're in right now.
I mean, really, just about anything sounds better than
Well,
this. Matthew and Jolton, fair point. You can't win the lottery if you're not in it. That is absolutely right.
Well, it's true. It's true.
They might be. I don't think that that's going to be their solution. I don't think that's going to be their plan, but they might be.
It could be. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get to more of your thoughts on the center depth for the Predators, plus some comments from Barry Trotz on UC Saros, maybe taking a little bit too much heat last year, coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Your thoughts on the Predators. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in, Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, Robby, man. Yeah, so I realized, I watched the first round of Wimbledon yesterday, so we don't have a lot going on right now in the world of sports as far as, excitement. But
Wimbledon's a
I
great
will
tournament.
say, dude, as you guys are sitting here talking, dude, I'm like, it seems pretty clear. It's like one of two things you think you pretty much have to be true. Either you think that the 18-game point streak that the Preds had the season before was a fluke, or you think that them finishing at the bottom of the league last year was a fluke. Like you'd almost have to fall into one of those buckets, right? Because I'm like, no matter what happens right here, dude, I just feel like, yeah, that dude they signed yesterday was okay. I just don't see anything changing. I think the 18-game point streak was a fluke. So I feel like until you change Brunette, it doesn't matter what they do right here, dude. They could go get a stud, and I don't think it's going to help. But I don't know. I'd be curious to see what you think there, though, Robby, because I feel like it doesn't matter the players you bring in if the system sucks. Like the dude that they brought in 2 days ago, even they're like, oh, he's 6'6". I'm like, he's 6'6" in a terrible system. Like he's going to end up. I mean, Michael McCarron's big, right? I don't know. It's not exciting to me, man. Like I said, maybe it wouldn't bother me as much if I had other things besides tennis, but it does kind of bother me a little bit.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
All right, I got to jump on this real quick. I feel like I jump on Adam sometimes, but Adam, the same system, the same coach won the President's Trophy. So I think I'm not saying that they shouldn't have changed Brunette. I think that when you look at everything, that probably makes sense. If you're not going to change the players, to change the coach. But let's not act like, again, this system is. I mean, Joel Quenneville had to be back in the league after all this crap that happened in Chicago. That's where he got the system. I mean, I think we put too much on system. We put too much on coach in this league. They had a crap team. They have some good players who were bad last year. You can put it all on Brunette if you want, but I think that's way oversimplifying.
Well, and look, Brunette talked yesterday a little bit, and he talked about, I asked him about the changes that he's going to make, and he didn't really get into it. Like he talked about how, he's been spending basically the last month working on some things to become a better coach. And that this week, when they get their roster for the most part nailed down of what it's going to be, they're going to start going over some tactical things. So he didn't really want to get much into adjustments and all that. By the way, we're going to have an Andrew Brunette on our show tomorrow at 8:15, so we're looking forward to that.
Maybe we can have Adam from Portland in with.
Well, maybe so.
Point counterpoint.
Go back and forth. But Andrew Brunette will be on our show tomorrow at 8:15, so we'll get into a lot of this with him as well. But look, I know people don't want to hear this, and I'm with you in terms of just skepticism and seeing, how much of a difference it's actually going to make given where they're at center. With where they're at center right now, Joe, it's hard for me to get them being a playoff team. It just is. However, I know that people are going to want to dismiss the defensive part of it. Defense was a huge problem for them last year. It was.
Yeah.
So if they are much better defensively, that's going to help them a lot. They will win more games. They will be in more games. And when you're better defensively, that can help you a little bit more offensively. Now, you still need offensive firepower, and I just don't know that they've got enough down the middle right now for that not to be a huge problem at some point. But if they are better defensively, significantly better defensively, that's going to help. The question is, are they significantly better defensively? They're certainly significantly bigger defensively. Are they significantly better defensively? And that I do not know for sure. We're going to find out.
Yeah, but they have at least. I mean, they've addressed it. We'll see. We'll see how well they've addressed it. They've addressed it. They have not addressed center, and I don't necessarily, or I probably wouldn't guess that it's for lack of trying, but they haven't been able to do it.
Right. To this point, they've not been able to do it. And look, there's still a lot of questions on defense that they've got. Is Brady Shea going to be good this year? Brady Shea, it felt like got better toward the end of last year. And then you looked at the situation around him and you're like, well, and Trotz said this yesterday, it was Brady Shea and a bunch of guys. Like that's what it was at the end of last year. Is Yossi going to be available all year? And if so, to what level is he playing? Like, even Yossi.
Huge question.
Yossi, before he got hurt last year, was, I would say, okay. He wasn't really, really good. Is he going to be okay again next year? Or is he going to be really, really, like, if Roman Yossi's back to being a Norris Trophy caliber player, well, that's a pretty darn big difference on defense right there. I don't know that I expect that to happen, but that's a big difference there. So, again, I know people are going to hear the defensive stuff, and trust me, I get it. I've been around here for a long time, too. I know the defensive stuff.
Get
it
excited.
wears on you after a while. I get it. I do. But I also think that you have to recognize that if they do make those improvements defensively, they will be better.
Yeah.
Even with their coach, that I know some of you think can't tie his shoes.
And I understand it's a totally different thing because they were dynamic and they had a lot. They were very versatile. But you think about why did they get within within 2 wins of winning the cup? It was because they had the best decor in the league.
Exactly. And look, this decor is not going to be that.
No.
So
that's
let's go ahead.
I'm not saying.
And I know you're not saying that, but
yeah.
It's not going to be that. But can it be really effective and limit people from getting to the middle of the ice and pushing them around like they got pushed around last year? That's going to be what's going to be interesting to see here. And the other part is, how much does it help your goalie? Is Barry Trotz right that most of their issues in goal have come from defense and is around them? Because that's what he said yesterday. And Barry Trotz was some interesting words about UC Saros and saying that maybe Saros is catching a little bit too much heat. Here's what Barry Trotz had to say yesterday at his press conference.
The big thing for me was the trade that we did the other day. That one feels absolutely right for where we want to go with this team. And then I think Nick is a really valued one. Our scouts do a really good job of finding those value guys where you want to get them before they pop. So I think they've done a really good job. So. And then we've got lots of good players. I mean, having Roman Yossi a healthy Roman Yossi back on the defense that we currently have, and the depth that we have there, I think we're going to be really, really good. And that'll make Saros' life a lot better too, because last year there was times it was very unfair for him. He took a lot of heat for it unnecessarily.
That was Barry Trotz talking about Saros. The defensive situation around him last year, said at times it was very unfair for him.
It's never the goalie's fault.
And then said he took a lot of heat for it unnecessarily, was what Barry Trotz said last year.
So people like mentioning his stats, like what, like were people in this town, in this station, written word, anywhere else, like just ripping UC Saros left and right last year?
I wouldn't say ripping, no.
It was a bad year.
There's concern.
What it was.
There's concern.
Yeah. I mean, we can all agree the defense was bad. He didn't get the support he needed, but also like he didn't rise up and overcome that. And I'm sorry, but when you sign someone like you signed him to that deal, then that's what you are signing up for, right?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a big question we're going to find out this year. Like if they're right and the defense is improved to the level in which they seem to think that it is, well, then UC Saros needs to look like Vezina Trophy UC Saros this year. Let me put it to you this way. If they fix the defense to the level that they think they have, I don't want to hear any excuses for UC Saros this year if I'm a Predators fan. You have paid him the money you've paid him. You got an 8-year deal that's starting right now. I'm done with the excuses from UC Saros this year. I'm done with it.
But again,
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and this is hockey, right? Like I'm still waiting. Well, I'm sorry, Peter DeBoer. Never mind. Let's set him aside.
Yeah.
Other than Peter DeBoer this year, like the blaming of the goalie, or even acknowledging that the goalie might have had anything to do with an issue, is like it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the lowest percentage of anyone ever talking in hockey history.
And look,
the goalie never gets blamed.
And look, I've said this before, and I stand by it. I am concerned about UC Saros. There have been stretches in each of the past 2 years where I look at it and I'm like, man, I just don't know. It's not looking good to me. I also acknowledge that if they are much better defensively, he probably will play better this year. Now the question is he still elite? I mean, that's what
Right.
that's what you signed him to be, is elite moving forward.
Yeah, you've decided to construct your team around him being one of the top guys in the league. That's what it is.
Yes.
Even with the cap going up, that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Exactly. So we're gonna begin to find out some of that this year. But Barry Trotz clearly, I took note of that yesterday. Clearly, I think is a little bothered by some of the discussion about UC Saros.
Well, yeah, I don't think. I mean, I said this. A texter said, Jared was, and a lot of people will just default to that. Did Jared get personal? I just don't think. I just don't think there was anything unfair. I really don't.
Well, let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Ryan in Mount Juliet. Ryan, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, guys. On the Trot Sauce about Soros, I think that's like total just trying to quiet the rush. I'm sorry, if you want to be considered an elite goaltender, Pekka didn't always have the greatest defense in front of him, and he always bailed him out. You look at guys like Vasilevsky and Igor Shesterkin. They didn't have great years, especially not Shesterkin, but you didn't see him ever say, hey, it's a defensive fault. It's not my fault that I can't get this job done. It's you want to be considered an elite, then you need to do it through yourself. And especially since you're getting this pay raise, you need the targets on your back, and you need to just make sure you play your crease and do what you got to do, and stop hoping the GM and the coach is going to bail you out from.
Well, let's be clear. Saros has not said any of this.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
let's be fair here. Like,
yeah.
Saros has not said a word about any of this. So let's not blame UC Saros for what Barry Trotz says.
I understand. I'm talking more on Trotz. Like, you stop trying to bail your goaltender. He needs to be an elite goaltender if he wants to be paid like elite goaltenders. And, let him take the criticism like every other goaltender in the NHL does.
Thanks for the call, Ryan. 615-737-1025, our phone number. A lot of your reaction to get to. We'll do that coming up next. Plus, what about Brady Martin? Is he a legitimate contender to make the roster this year? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will have Alex Doherty from the Tennessean joining us at 7:15. We'll get into all things Predators with him as well. So looking forward to that coming up a little bit later in the show. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. Joe, we went through the center depth earlier, and Barry Trotz acknowledging yesterday that, on paper, it's not very deep. And you look at it and you say, okay, who is driving the offense? Who's the point producer is going to be at center ice for this team? Well, another question that I've had, how realistic is it that Brady Martin, their first-round pick at number 5 overall, can actually push to make the team this year? Barry Trotz talked about it on draft night, and he said, nothing would surprise me with this kid. And he says, he's coming to take somebody's spot. And it was a really kind of more about his attitude and his approach. And so I just asked him yesterday, I was like, how much do you have an open mind? How much as we sit here on July 1st, are you thinking about Brady Martin making this roster? And here's what Barry Trotz had to say on that front yesterday.
Nothing would surprise me. This guy's he's got tons of confidence. I think he's a guy that pulls you into the fight. Someone was asking me, who do you remind me of? Sometimes I show my age, but he's got the Bobby Clark-ish type of mentality. He's got more skill than you thought. He will hurt you. He will pull guys into the fight. All those things that that make you, your team better when it matters. And he steps up when it matters. So, he had a chance at training camp to step up, and it was funny. He came in and he saw Mike McCarron walk by, and he's like, I got to go against him.
So he was talking about Mike McCarron coming by and how big he is, and was like, I got to go against him. And
so he's afraid of Michael McCarron. Yep. Get him out of here.
Yeah, like Trotz clearly loves this kid, and I understand. Obviously, they love him. They drafted him number 5 overall. Okay, so that part of it is a given, and I understand that. Like, I do wonder in the back of his mind is Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett, and less so Burnett because Burnett's got to see him on the ice, and he's the coach. But like Trotz has gone through the evaluation process. They've interviewed him. They've talked to him. They've had him in the building now this week. Like, is Trotz leaving room here for him to come in and make the team? It still seems far-fetched to me that an 18-year-old is going to come in and be ready to play in the NHL, and particularly be ready to play in a role where they probably need him to play at that point. I'm not going to discount the possibility that he starts the year and they play, they've got 9 games to play him before they burn a year of his deal. And he's in a spot with his contract and with, the current structure where he's either got to be in the NHL or he's going back to junior, which I hate, by the way.
Can't go to the AHL.
You can't go to the AHL,
stupid.
which is, I don't like that. Because I think, honestly, he'd be a perfect guy to just be like, all right, go to Milwaukee. Like, right now, go to Milwaukee. I'm interested to see how they view that. And because of where they're at with their center depth, if they're not able to pull off another move by the time the season comes around, do you give that more of a look if you're Barry Trotz with Brady Martin as an 18-year-old?
Yeah, I think that's I think he's going to have every opportunity. I'd like to know Crispy's take on Bobby Clark, by the way. I need to know if
Crispy loves Bobby Clark.
Yeah, I would think so. Captain the Broad Seat Bullies. I mean, you're talking about a 120-point player there, that Bobby Clark. So if he's Bobby Clark, you got to be pretty excited about that. But no, I mean, I think someone texted earlier and said, what would you say? 10% chances on team. Like you said, that's
probably the high end, but yeah.
Like the first few games, give it a look. I could see that.
I could see
happening.
that.
I could see that happening.
I could see, giving it a look for a minute and seeing, is he completely out of place here? Is he good enough early enough where you can live with some of the growing pains that would come? It doesn't seem like a very Barry Trotz Predator thing to do, is to bring up the 18-year-old and play. Now, I say that, they drafted Seth Jones at number 4 overall and played him immediately. Like, he was immediately there. So it's not like there's not precedent for this with a higher pick that they've had. Now, Seth Jones was a really, really good defenseman prospect, and most people agreed he was ready to play right out of the jump. And he was. Like, he was ready to play in the NHL right out of the jump. Is Brady Martin that type of player in the NHL? It's completely different. I mean, you're talking about two completely different positions, two completely different body types, all these things. So it's not a direct one-for-one comparison between him and Seth Jones. But it does underscore that, like, and Barry Trotz was the coach then, by the way, if they feel like a player is ready at 18, there is precedent for them putting one in the lineup. So we'll see.
Did Trotz say he has tons of confidence, or did you say that? Who said that? People are really seasoned on that.
Oh, Trotz said that. Yeah.
Is that allowed? He has tons of confidence?
Tons of confidence.
I didn't think that was allowed in sports until he's won a Stanley Cup and has had everyone in his family drink from the Stanley Cup before he can have any confidence. I don't understand.
In your Hall of Fame speech. That's when you can have
confidence. Exactly. Yeah. When you're on your deathbed after having won 4 Nobel Peace Prizes, then you can have confidence.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get into some more comments from the Predators coming up next. Alex Doherty from the Tennessean will be with us at 7:15. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. We're live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. We'll have Alex Doherty from the Tennessean coming up at 7:15, get his thoughts on the Predators, the signing of Nick Perbix yesterday, where their roster currently stands, and some comments from Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett as well. I got some thoughts to get to on the text line, so let's go ahead and do that. We have somebody that's attached a picture of Joe yawning that says that Joe looks thrilled about the Trotz move, so it's always good. We appreciate that when people snipe a picture of Joe on the YouTube feed as well.
I'm missing this. It's on the YouTube feed?
No. It's on the text line. Brady on the text line is sending the nice picture of you yawning.
Oh, yeah. I actually did see the replay of me yawning, or like the delayed of me yawning. It's supposed to cut off before I do stuff like yawn and, tend to my gout and things like
in
that.
the middle of the segment, wasn't it? You were just bored with what I was saying.
Is that right?
I need to
don't
be
know.
quicker on the stream trigger there for you.
Yeah, he's taking shots.
Oh, is that you?
Taking shots at Ian over there. He thinks it just automatically cuts off.
I guess.
Well, you got to do one, then you got to roll over,
Yeah.
You got to do the other.
Maybe Ian.
I'll adjust accordingly.
Ian, maybe
Gotta
he should
turn
hold
off your-
his yawn in until he's
Yeah.
ready to get off the air.
Sometimes I have to turn your mic off for you,
Yeah.
pull a PK, something like that.
I mean, there's a lot going on over
There
here.
it is. All right. I'm sorry. I still can't see this. It's probably good though, but I'm sure Big Joe will get a hold of it.
Nate on the text line says, if there's a bright side to all this, it's most of the forwards are going to be young guys like Trotz wants. Brunette can't put him in the doghouse for making mistakes. My biggest thing with Brunette has been benching young guys for making mistakes, with veterans making similar/same mistakes. Now, a couple things on that. I mean, again, look at the roster. I don't think it's going to be majority young guys, right? Like, there's still Forsberg and O'Reilly and Stamkos. They brought in Halla. There's Marchessault. There's Bunting. They've got a lot of veteran forwards that are still there.
These aren't the baby Preds.
McCarron's not a young guy. Cole Smith's not a young guy. Anyways, most of their forwards are older players. Most of their defensemen right now they're not all ancient, but there's some good-sized, some defensemen that have played some good amount of hockey in the NHL.
You might get Matt Molendyke.
You might get Molendyke. You might not. We'll see.
You might have Kemmel with Evangelista with Svechkov this year.
And Evangelista, I guess he's a young guy.
I'd still call him young, right?
This is like his fourth year.
Right.
So it's not totally the young guy thing anymore with him anymore. It's a big year for him. And by the way, there's kind of an update on him yesterday. They're still talking. It sounds like Trotz is trying to land more of a longer term deal with Luke Evangelista, and probably trying to extend out that lower AAV a little bit longer. And the agent, it sounds like, is not on board with that to this point. So we'll see what happens on that front. But I wouldn't worry about it. He's a restricted free agent. He's going to get signed at some point.
Yeah, they'll work that out.
They'll work that out.
He's got to have
a huge year.
Much better year.
He's got to have a huge
like
year.
A lot of people, but yeah.
So the other part of that is, again, as I responded to Nate, you're not going to find a team in the NHL that does not treat veteran forwards, veteran players differently than young players, particularly star players when you're talking about Stamkos and Marchessault. So I get it. Like, everybody wants, Jonathan Marchessault to have the same set of rules to him as, Fedor Svechkov did last year, and it just doesn't work that way. Like, you're not going to find it. But right or wrong, veteran players, particularly star veteran players in the league, have more rope with the coaching staff. It's the way it is in the NHL. It's the way it is in most sports, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I think, I guess I look at it more than like the Brunette side of it. I think it's more the philosophical from Trotz down and going back. How many times did we ask David Poyle about Tomasino, for example?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I guess we get it now at some point. But I mean, I think it's more that, and that's where the Martin thing is interesting. Like you brought up a great example of how it's not like across the board with him, but he talks overcooking so much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's going to be really interesting, particularly on Martin, is do they feel like he's like too good to go back to junior? I don't know. Like it's because this is another reason why I hate this rule, because I think Martin would be a perfect example of just go stick him in the AHL and see how he does for 3 months.
Yeah,
And then if he's
you'd
ready
really
to play,
have a picture of
yeah.
what you have.
And then
Yeah.
if he's ready to play, bring him up. But like going back to junior, and again, it's not like he went out in junior last year and put up 150 points. We get caught looking strictly at point total a little bit too much.
Which
Like
I think
there's
Ethan from Lawrenceburg may be doing a little bit here.
there's a lot of looking at point totals going on out there, which, by the way, was good. It's not like he didn't have a good point total. I think it's 72 or whatever it was. So he's a good offensive player. I'm not going to go overboard with it, but there are other elements to his game that I think could make him NHL ready a little sooner. We'll see what happens on that front.
And then, you get into and part of the overcooking philosophy, I think, is sometimes you bring up that there is the public aspect of being with the Preds.
Yep.
And so then if you are good enough to contribute to be on the team, you can handle it physically, but you're not producing at the level that a top 5 pick produces early, then that becomes hard publicly.
I brought up earlier Andrew Brunette speaking yesterday, and I asked him about, taking some time away and looking to make some adjustments heading into this year and how that process is going. Here's what Andrew Brunette had to say on that front yesterday.
Well, we're just kind of in the process right now. That's what this week's about with the coaching staff. Obviously, we made a change. We had Luke Richardson in, and we're just kind of going through the year a little bit. I think you take a step away, and I think a lot of times you take a step away, it wasn't as bad as you really thought. And it wasn't probably as good as it wasn't as good as you thought other years were. So you're trying to improve and self-improvement. I think this last month as a coach and starting this week, we're how can we improve as a group systematically? Obviously, we're waiting to see what our personnel is before we dive right in, and obviously with the length back there that we added, we'll see if we can change a few things and get better in a few areas.
So that sounds like a total nothing burger. There was something he said in the middle there that is interesting to me, and it's kind of when you put 2 and 2 together. Like he talked about, I think he called it self-improvement. And he said the last month he's been working on that as a coach. Barry Trotz with Stilly last week basically said that he gave Andrew Brunette like some projects over the summer to work on as a coach. So that at a future date we'll be interested to see like what exactly was that? What exactly did he have you work on? But it was interesting he brought that up of like the last month there've been things that I've been working on to try to improve as a coach. And now that we're back in the fold and the roster's coming together, it's about diving in tactically and seeing where you can adjust there. But it seems pretty clear when you add all these things together that Barry Trotz had some things individually as a coach, be that messaging, be that whatever, that he wanted Andrew Brunette to work on, and that apparently he's been doing that for the last month. What do you make of that?
Trust falls?
I don't know about trust falls.
Camp? Some kind of a camp?
I
Coach
don't
camp?
know. I don't know. Trotz used the word projects with Stilly last week. I don't know what that means.
Like word teasers?
I don't know.
Rubik's Cube? I
don't
gotta
know.
know. I'm going to ask tomorrow.
I don't know. I mean, it would probably be worth bringing up tomorrow. Like, what exactly have you been kind of working on the last month?
Origami?
Hey, origami's pretty fun.
Like making a pterodactyl? I mean, like he said, he's going through the year, so obviously they're going through the film of last year,
right?
Which
And that's
is,
more
I
this
think,
week.
a traditional
with
self-scouting
Yeah.
thing, and right.
Hey, look, I put some of that out there yesterday, and some of the response I got back was, "You mean to tell me they haven't worked on adjustments yet?" It was like, well, when you really think about it, it does make sense to actually know what your roster is going to be for the most part before you just start diving into everything systematically. Because like if you go sign 3 people in free agency like they did last year that totally changed the equation, you probably ought to have a plan for that.
Right. So Brunette's back in. Is like, so how's that center?
Oh, boy.
How'd Barry help me out at center? Hey, okay. But I'll work on some projects for you. Hey, here's a project. Get me a center.
615-737-1025, our phone number. I think Rexrode's a little fired up at Trotsy this morning.
You get my binoculars. Here's my project. I'm looking for a center somewhere in the world.
Does Preparation H help find centermen? Alex Doherty from the Tennessean will join us next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. Rexrode has just lost total composure throughout the break.
So many projects. I'm sorry.
Barry, I need a centerman. Stat.
Let's get our knapsacks, hop some trains, and go find a centerman, Barry.
Oh, good gracious. Let's head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Alex Doherty from the Tennessean, who does an outstanding job covering the Predators. Alex, good morning. How are you?
Don't make us laugh.
I'm doing great. Wow, it sounds like I've missed a whole lot this morning already.
Oh, boy. I don't even know where to start. Good gracious.
Well, actually, I would like to know what the projects are, Alex, if you could tell us.
We'll see what happens there. Andrew Brunette, as you know, spoke yesterday, and he talked about how the last month has been about, self-improvement as a coach. And, Barry Trotz said on Stilly's show last week that he had given Andrew Brunette some projects to kind of work on over the summer. So Rexrode is very curious to know what those projects are.
Well, what's interesting is, I think the most interesting takeaway from everything yesterday, it sounds like the project that Barry Trotz gave Bruno is you're going to have to win without any good centers. So figure it out. He basically said that, if you remember. I asked him, okay, I listed off the 4 centers, right?
Did he agree with you that that's who they've got?
So those are the guys.
Confirmed those are the 4 guys. And then basically said, there's different ways to win. You're just going to have to adjust and have commitment from the whole group. And he said, and then pretty interesting that Trotz was just like, if you look at it on paper, you're right. It's not a very deep center group. There's no question. And then he even alluded to, when he was a coach, how do you win with that? I did that for years. I won with a team commitment to defense and all that stuff. I think he said something like some of the lineups I had in those early years weren't very good, and we did pretty good. And I remember thinking, Barry, I don't know how you remember 1998 through 2002 or 2003, but it was not very good. There were a lot of bad years in there. Eventually it got better, but it's like that meme, like we're all trying to find the guy who did this, it feels like this center situation is like Barry couldn't find one, couldn't get one. He said, I can't get one overnight or anything. And then it's just like, you know what? We can't do it. You're just going to have to win other ways. You're just going to have to win with a gigantic defense, and you're going to have to just get your wingers to score even more goals and put even more pressure on, 34, 35-year-old Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Luke Evangelista and Philip Forsberg. You're going to have those guys do even more. It was just a very honest take from Barry Trotz. And then, we'll see how Bruno plays it, but I think he's a coach. He's gonna just do what he can to figure it out. But it will be unfortunate if, let's say, 2 months into the season, it's not going well, and Andrew Brunette takes the fall for what is essentially a bad setup. Another bad setup, especially up the middle, with a center group that is just not equipped to win a lot of games in the NHL, and a defensive group that doesn't score, but will do its best to try to hurt the other team a lot. It's just the strategy is very clear. He's at least being clear about the strategy, maybe more so than he was all of last year, but it really is questionable whether this is going to work or not.
You're not painting a beautiful picture this morning, Alex. Let me ask. No, but I agree with everything you said, but on the decor, obviously a couple additions here. I think everyone liked, the most recent one. There's a lot of questioning about Haig. They are bigger. There's the Saros question, which Trotz, felt like he took a little bit of unfair flack, I guess, last year. But based on how it looks now back there, can you see a significant improvement there? And if so, what can that mean for others?
Well, I like the Perbix signing, Nick Perbix. I remember targeting him. I remember thinking about him as an option, as a right-handed shot option that would be relatively cheap. I think he's pretty good. I mean, I don't think he's going to be some revelation and go out and just transform everything, but I think he's a good option and still pretty young. And I like the contract. You know, the Hague signing, you know, it still doesn't make a lot of sense. And then even yesterday, I think Barry said that he could see Bruno going with Nick Hague and Roman Yossi.
Yep.
I mean, that is not a pairing that I would think works. I think Nick Hague needs to be a third pairing guy. But they're paying him a lot of money. I mean, so he's going to get a lot of minutes. I mean, he did have a couple of years ago with Vegas that he played, you know, 18, 19 minutes a night, something like that. Sort of a second pairing level, but is that guy going to play 22 minutes a night playing with Roman Yossi? I can't see that. I mean, that seems like it would be a lot for that guy to take on, even as a younger player. So is the defense going to be better? I mean, I know Barry said that he got tired of seeing his defense pushed into the net, and I think that was related to what he was saying about Saros. Like, well, half the time the defense is pushed into UC Saros, so he couldn't play goal back there, but. And I do understand, like he was saying, at the end of last year, it was Brady Shea and it was a bunch of you know, waiver wire pickups and AHL defensemen. That doesn't sound like, it sounds like he's really locked up and made sure that won't happen again. I just think that he is really overplaying the balance of big and skilled. I think he's really gone heavy the other way. You know, for a little while there, the Predators had a lot of smaller defensemen, right? Dante Fabro, Alex Carrier, just a couple. I mean, Roman Yossi's not like huge. He's not small, but and then now they kind of swung the other way. They don't have. I asked him about, you know, the fact that a lot of the really skilled defensemen in this league, like Quinn Hughes, are pretty small guys, and he's like, well, you need a balance. Well, I just don't think they have much of a balance now. They have a lot of big guys. They got 6'6", 6'4", 6'2", 6'3", big guys back there that are not fleet of foot. I don't think that that's where the NHL is going. I don't think that you can win with a lineup of mammoth dudes back there that just push everyone around. You've got to do stuff with the puck. You got to get the puck up the ice. You got to play. You're going to have to skate the puck up the ice sometimes. You can't always just pass it up. So that, to me, I'm a little skeptical that the defense is going to work, and I'm even more skeptical about the center lineup that seems to be a little slim. Now, I will say, you know, we can talk about Brady Martin, obviously, but that's the one piece of possible hope, right? Brady Martin, if he plays, but we'll see.
Well, let's talk about that. So Brady Martin taken 5th overall, and Trotz was, you know, very complimentary in the immediate aftermath of the draft of Brady Martin, as you expect him to be. But I asked him yesterday about like how realistic is it that he makes the team? How much of an open mind does Trotz have on that? And, you know, he basically talked about, you know, nothing would surprise him with Brady Martin. He rises to the occasion. He's going to have an opportunity in camp. So what do you make of that? And with where they're at centerman right now, do you think there's a realistic shot that Brady Martin, as an 18-year-old, is going to play for them this year?
You know, I think that there's a better chance than maybe people think. Now we still have to see him in like live games. We've seen him a couple times this week and just in drills and stuff. I'm really looking forward to seeing him today in like this 3-on-3 tournament they're going to do, and then also in the Future Stars. Because if he doesn't come away as the clear best player on the ice in the 3-on-3 and in the Future Stars game when he's out there, then I think he's going to have to go back. To me, he has to stand out as this guy needs to play right now. You know, you can't just say, oh yeah, there's some things there, because as soon as you get into an NHL lineup, you're gonna get lost if you're not clearly the better player. The precedent here is what's worrisome, right? So there, if you look at not number 1 and number 2 picks, like I'm taking out all the Bedards and McDavid and Patrick Laine and Austin Matthews. Ignore those obvious plug and play guys. The list of guys that get drafted, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you know, in that whole range that actually play as an 18-year-old is pretty slim. It's a very short list. I mean, like the most recent that I can think of is Zach Benson, who did it a couple of years ago. He was 18, coming out of the WHL, and played 71 games for Buffalo. He was pretty good. Cole Sillinger's another one. He was drafted number 12 overall. He played for Columbus. I think there's some precedent for it, but it's not a lot of guys that do it. I mean, it's just not very often. But one that did it that sticks out to me as well is Scott Hartnell, under Barry Trotz, playing. He played 72 games as a 18-year-old. He was drafted number 6 overall. And, you know, he didn't have a great 18-year-old season, but, you know, Scott Hartnell's a great player and ended up being a really great player in the NHL. I think if Brady Martin turned into a Scott Hartnell, but from the center position, there's nothing wrong with that. So the precedent is tough. It's going to be hard to really believe that they're going to do it until it actually happens. But I think that's the only thing that makes me think, man, this center group could be really bad. But if at least you're getting a good, you know, 60, 70, 80 games out of Brady Martin as an 18-year-old, it's probably worth it.
Is there any sort of trade solution that you can come up with, Alex, down the middle?
Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't think so. I mean, it seems like the cost would be so high. You know, the price you have to pay for that is crazy. Now, the only one there's not some. I don't understand why no one really went after Pius Suter yet. I mean, that guy. He's not some next level guy, but he scored 25 goals last year as a center, and is 28, 29 years old. So like, there's some free agent options that I think. Sadly enough, I think there's some free agent options that are still better than what they have. Like the Eric Hall signing continues to be strange to me. I just don't really get that. And then by trading away Colton Sissons, you lose it, but you lose even more. But trade options, yeah, it's like pick any team in the NHL and go to them and say, yeah, we'd like to acquire your second line center or your first line center, and just like, you know, be ready to pay the highest price possible, because there's no way. I mean, the teams don't want to give that up. They know how important it is. So I don't even see that as an option unless they get really desperate and have injuries and need to find another option.
Well, Alex, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. It is going to be very interesting to see where they go from here, and we will talk to you soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Alex Doherty from the Tennessee and our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react to what Alex had to say to get some more of your thoughts on the Predators. Plus, NBA free agency going crazy as well out there. We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Tzatziki's. If you're craving something fresh and flavorful, Tzatziki's got you covered. From juicy chicken kebabs to perfectly grilled salmon, every bite bursting with Mediterranean goodness. And don't even get us started on the homemade sauces and dressing. Get half off a $25 gift card while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5 The Game. Brought to you by First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Appreciate Alex Doherty from the Tennessean for being with us in the last segment. Joe did not sound overly positive on the Predators front from the Alex Doherty front.
He made me feel worse about the Nashville Predators.
I mean, you didn't feel great all morning long.
No, but I mean, I think he makes, obviously, the decor. I mean, I think they have done some things that are important. I think there was a missing element of physicality. I think that, again, like you said, the perfect signing. I think everybody agree that's a solid signing. But then there is the point he brings up about, like, is he gone too far the way of size and strength? Has he gone too far that way?
We'll see. I mean, I think a lot of that depends on what is Roman Josi.
Right. Like you said earlier, if he's great this year, then you got the guy.
Yeah, if you've got Roman Josi, you'll probably be fine with the current setup if he has a bounce back type of year. If not, then the defense could be in some trouble. Well, I mean, we'll see with Nick Hague and what that looks like, and they're clearly expecting him to play in a higher role than he played in Vegas. So is that a good call? Is that a bad call? We'll find out. Perbix is not going to come in here and set the world on fire. He's not like some great offensive defenseman. He does bring size to the table, and he's got a little bit of offensive pop to him. Not much, but a little bit. I think some of the answer here is what Predators fans are not going to want to hear. But I think they think that there's a chance that Justin Barron is going to turn out to be really good. I believe that. I'm not saying that I necessarily totally agree with that, but I think that they think that. I will say this, Barron, from when he got here last year to the end of the year, got a whole lot better. When he first got here, I was like, this guy can't defend anything. Like he can skate well, but he can't play defense at all. And then it started to get a little bit better at the end of the year. So, I mean, Barron's a big guy too. He also skates really well. So you've got some of that. So if they're right on him and he continues to improve to the degree in which I think they're thinking he will, well, then that makes a big difference as well. We'll see whether or not they're – I mean, a lot of this comes down to are they right or are they wrong, right? And it's similar to last year. We talked when they signed Stamkos, Marchessault, and those two specifically. You can add Shea in there, but really those two specifically. One of the things I said was, well, somebody's going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong. Tampa didn't want to go there with Stamkos. Marchessault didn't want to go – or Vegas didn't want to go there with Marchessault. Somebody's going to be right. Somebody's going to be wrong. And through 1 year, the Predators are wrong. We'll see if it continues to go that way. Same thing here on defense. Like they clearly believe Nick Hague can play in a higher role. They clearly think Justin Barron, based on some of the comments they've had about him, is going to continue to be improved, and they think he's got a chance to be really good. Are they right? That's what this is going to boil down to.
Yeah. And as George says in the YouTube chat, the Preds winger is going to have to play with more zing and even more pep. And I say maybe even some vim and vigor as well. There are some elements of this team that are going to have to compensate for the part of the team that we talk about a lot that is just deficient.
Yep. What do you make of the NBA free agency going on? The Milwaukee Bucks are making some headlines. Miles Turner coming in. 4 years, $107 million. Damian Lillard has been moved. He's been waived, and we'll see where he ends up. So you got Lillard out in Milwaukee. Miles Turner coming in. There's the whole what is going to happen with Giannis moving forward in Milwaukee. Does he want out? Is he going to be traded at some point? You've had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sign the Supermax in Oklahoma City, so that's expected. We knew that was coming. But what do you make of the Miles Turner move going from Indiana to Milwaukee?
That's just a stunner to me. And I know that this year, obviously Halliburton's going to be out and all that stuff, but and so there was some conversation about like the luxury tax and all that, but I that's an essential piece of their team. And is this enough? The Bucks also signed Gary Harris, like you said. They waived Lillard. He's got an Achilles, a lot of Achilles. And is this going to be enough to keep Giannis? I mean, it's what it is, I think, right? It's a play to keep him.
Yep.
There's been a lot of speculation about different teams that might get him. Your Miami Heat or one of the teams being mentioned, as a team that might be able to get Giannis, but I don't know. I mean, is that enough? I'm intrigued by Miles Turner in Milwaukee with Giannis. That's intriguing to me.
Yeah, me too. Giannis has been a pretty loyal guy throughout his career, and he's had different opportunities to leave Milwaukee, and he hasn't done it. And he's always kind of talked about that being a place and an opportunity that is special to him, and wanting to remain loyal. Now, I think that runs out at some point if you don't feel like they're going in the right direction, which I think is where they've arrived right now. Which
Yes.
is all right. I love you guys. I want to be here, but you guys got to show me that we got a chance to win here. So, is this going to be enough? To me, it probably wouldn't be. It's just me, but I'm interested to see how he views that. If he reaches the conclusion that it's not enough, I mean, where he ends up is going to be really fascinating, because there are a couple different spots where it could be really interesting what he could do. Like, people have talked about San Antonio, right? Like if Wembanyama's healthy and you've got him and Wembanyama on the same team, like what could that look like?
Scary.
People have thrown out the idea. I've seen this, and I don't know exactly how they'd make it work, but they do have a ton of picks to make a deal. What about Oklahoma City? Like him going from one small marketplace to another and him playing with SGA. I mean, that would be insane. So there's some intriguing options. If he doesn't end up wanting to stay in Milwaukee, there are some intriguing options for him that are going to be out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, there's just, you put him with about anyone. Obviously, with Giannis, you have, you can't, sometimes you can't space the floor. So you gotta, to me, he's got to be with multiple shooters. That's what they try to do with Dame. You got to be able to space the floor as much as possible with Giannis on your team. But yeah, like Wemby and what he can do. I mean, it's
a lot of length out there.
Yeah, right. Like think about that on the other end of the floor. So it's a huge move. I mean, if the Bucks end up paying this, well, I mean, look, if he's elsewhere, then I mean, I guess Miles Turner is still like a piece for you to build on to your next next iteration of your team. But obviously, they're giving it a try. I mean, I guess as much as I like the loyalty thing, and I think it'd be cool, and obviously we are a Milwaukee sports station too.
Oh yes,
go Admirals. I would be really intrigued to see Giannis somewhere else. I mean, it's kind of a fun thing. Like, I'm not that excited about Kevin Durant going to Houston. I understand, like, it helps him, but I feel like he's on the downside. I don't think that's going to get them into the serious contender realm. Maybe I'm wrong, but Giannis, wherever he goes, like that changes the math for that team. Big time.
Yeah, no doubt. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. We'll get back into the Predators and some comments from Barry Trotz to begin the 8 o'clock hour. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
I know you all think I don't like the press, but I really do love you.
Because Andrew's got a lot on his plate. I've put a lot on his plate this summer.
Trotz used the word projects with Stilly last week. I don't know what that means.
Just different things in terms of messaging, everything from projects.
What exactly have you been kind of working on the last month?
Origami?
I drew the duck blue because I've never seen a blue duck before, and to be honest with you, I wanted to see a blue duck.
There's a couple projects I had him do. He's done some projects with his group.
Word teasers?
I don't know.
Rubik's Cube?
I
gotta know. Preds fans, is Barry Trotz's GMing chapping your butt? Well, I got just the cure, but I'll work on some projects for you.
Are you going to listen to me or are you going to listen to these guys?
Does Preparation H help find centerman?
Hey, here's a project. Get me a center.
Well, it's an excellent blue duck. Congratulations. You just passed the first grade.
Oh, Miss Slippy, that's so great.
To you, girl. Step by step.
It is that time of the day. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. Joseph, I don't even know what to say after that one, so the floor is yours.
It's really not about the rants. It's about the intros.
It really is.
Bringing that to a little Billy Madison. Very nice. He worked on some nice projects, didn't he? That young Billy. Also, I was there. I'm pretty sure I was there for that Saban presser because I think that was after they beat Michigan State in the playoff in 2015 when he said that. And I was like, did he just seriously say I love you to the media?
By the way, Nick Saban, big Preds fan.
Yeah.
Apparently an observer of Nashville Predators development camp yesterday.
Yeah.
There you go.
How about that? I remember when he was here. He was here for the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
Did he come for all the home games? It's like
I
he
don't
was
know if it
there
was
and
all of them.
Barkley was there.
Yeah.
And yeah. So there you go. You got your Preds fan, Nick Saban. Quickly, before I get into my rant, I'd just like to go back to Gino, if you're listening. I did listen to the interview with Tony Petitti and Joel Klatt. And let me say, Gino, you made a lot of points. You said it was unfair. I was not hard enough on Tony Petitti or Joel Klatt after listening to the interview, okay? I regret being so nice yesterday, okay? Unbelievable. All right, I've got to go back to the Caitlin Clark well, okay?
Okay.
Because I see people freaking out about Caitlin Clark again. She's not freaking out, but other people love to freak out for her. Caitlin Clark is an all-star starter and a captain, which I think is just based on like the overall voting score. There's a fan, media, and player vote in WNBA. Fan vote, she's number one, no surprise.
This is all-star.
This is all-star. Sorry,
Okay.
WNBA all-star. Media vote, she's number 3. Player vote, number 9. Oh, my God. They hate her. Oh, my. You don't touch Caitlin, and you better vote for her. Oh, my God, WNBA players. Caitlin Clark has missed half the season, guys.
It's true.
I would argue more that the media voting her third. I mean, I know the fans are going to vote her first, but the media voting her third is overvoting for her. Now, you can nitpick 9 if you want. You know, Kelsey.
9's probably a little strong.
Okay, but I mean, she's shooting 29%. She's shooting terribly this year. Like, are we basing it on performance or not? Does that matter?
Sure.
She's averaging 6 turnovers a game. Does that matter?
Sure.
Okay. She's averaging 8.9 assists per game. She's fantastic. Look, I love Caitlin Clark. She's a great player. She has not been great this year. It's not her fault she's gotten hurt. But if you're not playing, does that not affect voting?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think 9 is a problem. I don't at all. Kelsey Mitchell, her teammate, is scoring the same. They're both scoring 18 plus a game. She came in 6. And by the way, they just won the stupid. They have got their own in-season, but they won it last night, and Caitlin Clark didn't play.
Yeah,
I mean, Kelsey Mitchell's really freaking good. Other player votes. Let's see.
Can we get these in-season cups out of basketball? By the way,
I mean, obviously not. So we're not getting it out. Okay, let's see. Other player votes. So Number 1 was Alicia Gray, who's just incredible. Ian Escu's number 2. You got Skylar Diggins 3. Paige Beckers gets 4th. You know, Mitch, like I said, Mitchell 6th. It's not a problem. But people are going to make this into some huge thing because we must protect Caitlin, and you can't touch Caitlin, and you got to vote for Caitlin, and Caitlin. She's not crying. Why do you have to cry? End of rant.
Wow. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Good stuff. People complain sometimes that you don't rant in your rants. That was a rant.
I hope Kaharski was listening, you know? And like I said, I'm going to try Kaharski's voice under the covers on a loop as a gout cure to make if it makes your skin crawl. Does that help gout
retreat? Here's something that'll get you fired up. One texter says, Joe, you've had some really bad takes, but this one takes the cake.
Oh, okay.
She is that league. Other players are jealous of her. And in parentheses, this person says, I hate the WNBA.
Cool. Well, thanks for weighing in on the WNBA. So again, I ask you, if her numbers are down, again, she's shooting terribly this year. I think that'll change. She's been hurt half the year. I think she's played 9 of 16 games.
I believe that is correct.
She's averaging 6 turnovers a game. The turnovers are, look, when I watch her, she's a blast to watch. She's a great player, but she does she takes too many chances. Yeah, like if you're talking about winning a championship, like her turnover ratio is 9-6.
Yeah.
You got to be better than 2-1.
Yeah.
You have to be. So she's not having a great year, and she hasn't been playing much. You think that she absolutely should be like, I don't care. These players better vote her number 1. Why? Some of them are absolutely jealous of her or hate her, whatever. Sure. But you still have to also show me someone actually doing harm to her and not bumping her so everybody freaks out. Phil says, Breaking Joe's a huge Angel Reese guy. No, what? Do you have to be one or the other? She's a good player.
Where was she on this?
I like the rivalry.
I'm legitimately asking. I have no idea where was Angel Reese.
I don't either. Let me look. Let's see here. Okay, Angel Reese. The players voted her 12th. Oh my God! Is that bad or is that good? Let's freak out about that too. They voted her after Caitlin. Oh no! The media voted her 12th. The fan vote for Angel Reese was 5th.
Okay.
So I guess that blows up some narratives that no one likes her. She's a good player. She's not a great player. She just had I think she had a 27, 16, and 10 game. She's good. They have a rivalry. The problem is that they don't play the same position, and Caitlin Clark is a much better player. But again, people are going to freak out about this and make a big deal out about this, and it's not a big deal at all.
William from Madison says the biggest news last night on the WNBA game is that Red Panda got injured. I did see that.
Oh, my God. Thank you for bringing that up, William. That is absolutely awful. I hope Red Panda's okay.
Was it serious?
I don't know. It didn't look good.
They helped her off, I guess. I didn't see.
But she does video. the halftime show at the SEC tournament, right?
Yeah, she does halftime shows everywhere. It's the greatest halftime show. I like Quick Change too. For those of you who don't know Red Panda, she's a woman on a unicycle.
Yeah, makes me incredibly nervous.
Oh, it's nerve-wracking as hell. But she flips those glass bowls up, or China bowls, and up and catches them. It's insane. It's amazing. I hope she's okay. That is actually the bigger news, William. You're right.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back into some comments from Barry Trotz, the signing of Nick Perbix in free agency. Could anything else be coming for the Nashville Predators? All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning, taking your thoughts on the Predators, 615-737-1025. They make one move in free agency yesterday. Nick Perbix, a right-handed shot defenseman coming in from the Tampa Bay Lightning. He signs a 2-year deal, a $2.75 million cap hit in each of the next 2 years. That was the move made by the Predators yesterday. I don't anticipate that there are many more moves coming. Like Barry Trotz talked about it, said they're not in on any of like the other big names that are still out there. You might see them add a guy or two free agency wise over the next few days here that maybe is a fringe type player, but we'll see. I mean, the real question in terms of from this point out with the roster is going to be, is there some sort of trade that gets made at some point? And we'll see whether or not that's the case by the time the offseason comes around, or by the regular season comes around. But Nick Perbix added to the blue line yesterday. Joe, I like the move. I think there's very little risk to it. If he's not that good here in a couple of years, you can move on from him. It's not a huge cap hit. I think he comes in, he fills a nice need for you. It's not like they're getting some superstar defenseman that comes in, but I think he can play. He could play alongside Roman Josi if you really need him to. Doesn't have to. He can play lower in the lineup and fill spots there. So I think a kind of a versatile guy on the right side that I like the signing. I like the years. I like the cap number. So good job by Barry Trotz on that front.
Yeah, needed a shot in the arm, huh? Needed a little shot in the arm there. No, it's good. You gotta, we've talked about the absence of right shot defensemen, and it's good to me to see someone in their 20s sign with the Preds. I think that's a good thing.
It is.
Still don't totally know how it's all going to shake out there. The question you brought up, the playing with Roman Josi is a really interesting thing.
It is.
There's some things to figure out, but it's a good signing.
I'm interested to see who plays with Josi because, Trotz did bring up Nick Hague yesterday about, potentially that could be an option. One of the things he's talked about is Josi can play on the right. Nick Hague can play on the right. Nick Hague has played on the right in Vegas at times. Tanner Molendyk has played on the right at the lower levels. Now, what does that mean in the NHL? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But Tanner Molendyk can play on the right side. He's done it for 4 years in Saskatoon. So he was talking about that the other day. So they do have some options with their left shot defensemen that they can kind of move those guys around a little bit if you want to. I think Josi in particular is equipped to play on the right. There's a lot that I think it does for him. It sets up the one-timer a little bit more often. He's a guy that's so good with the puck that you're not as worried about his ability to handle it on the backhand because he's just really gifted that way. So, I'm not worried about Josi playing on the right side. I think if that's the way they need to go, then they'll do that. Really, the worries with Josi are about his health. How healthy is he going to be? And if he is healthy, to what level is he playing? Because I thought last year, like everybody else, they were okay at best. I think Josi was okay at best last year. So is that what he is now for him?
Yeah.
Right. So is that what he is now, or does he have another year of, borderline Norris Trophy level play in him? Because if he's got that, well, that totally changes what the defense is right now.
Yeah. And the defense, a huge talking point.
Oh, yes.
Yesterday, of course. So, look, it does have to be better. It did hurt Saros. It can help other parts of the team if you can defend effectively. So, we'll see if this iteration is going to work. I definitely agree that it's important. I know it's not exciting for Preds fans to think about, well, no centerman, so play better D.
Yeah, and that's
not exactly. I paraphrase a little bit.
Well, there. Yeah, but it was kind of indirectly discussed, right? Like, Barry Trotz, and it was asked about his center depth, and, Alex Doherty, who we had on earlier in the show, laid out the centerman that they've got, which right now that's what it is. It's O'Reilly, it's Svechkov, it's Halla, and it's Michael McCarron. That's what they've got down the middle right now. And Barry Trotz made it clear on with Stillman last week that he doesn't really want Steven Stamkos to play center. He wants him on the wing. So when that's the case, those are the four options you've got at center right now. And here's what Barry Trotz had to say on his center depth and how they're handling that this offseason.
So your center depth, Ryan O'Reilly, Fedor Svechkov, Eric Halla, Michael McCarron, those are just four that come to mind.
It's four that we have.
You've said you want to win this year. Do you think that center depth, that lineup is good enough to win this year?
Well, I think, there's different ways to do it. I know that, as I said, I've had different experiences. You're just going to have to adjust and have the commitment from the whole group. If you look at it on paper, it's not a deep center group. There's no question. So how do you do that? You got to play. You can win with really good defense. I did that for years. You do that with a team commitment to defense, and you've got to be really dangerous off the wings. I think we can do that with what we have. Now, at the center ice position, you're going to have to be reliable, and you're going to have to be strong defensively and committed to be on the right side of the puck. Having your defense, having a little more, I'll say a little more length and size will help that. So it's going to be, you have to be the mentality. It has to be just the buy-in.
So he talks about the buy-in and the mentality and how right now, the way their roster is constructed, they've made big changes to the defense. They've gotten a lot bigger there. And he says they need to be really dangerous off the wing. And you look at what they've got at wing with Stamkos, Marchessault, Forsberg, and Bunting, Evangelista, whoever you want to kind of toss in that mold there. Is it realistic to think that those guys can be dangerous enough off the wing with the centermen that they're playing with? That would be the natural follow-up question. So
be more dangerous, Steven.
Yeah. Hey, he had a bad year last year, and I think he ended up with still 27 goals. So if he's more comfortable, who knows? I'll tell you what they really need that could really help them out. They need an answer to be found on the power play where they're just freaking lethal on that thing. Like that would go a long way offensively if you could find a way for that top power play unit, who was okay last year. I wouldn't say that they were great. They were okay last year on the power play. If you could find a way for them to get into great territory on the power play, you'd offset some of that with a prolific power play.
Yeah. You got to make up in other areas for what you lack down the middle. And you also, of course, have to have things like, oh, wow, Svechkov is better than we realized.
Yeah.
Look at the step he took this summer. A lot of stuff like that has to go your way. I still feel like some kind of a trade is worth it, or any kind of trade, every possible trade is worth exploring at this point. But at this point, this is what it looks like it's going to be. And so I guess that's the project for Andrew Brunette.
Yeah.
This is enough of a project. Make a winner out of this flawed roster and just flawed construction of a team.
Logan says, I think people are losing their minds over these defensive additions. I'm totally down with the approach so far. How many 2+ goal leads did the Predators blow last year? I can't think of several. I think he means can. Hopefully Stamkos and Marchessault and Philip Forsberg will have better years and the goals will come. The defense has to get better. I don't think anybody would argue with that. The defense has to get better than they were a year ago. And they're certainly different than they were a year ago. They've gotten bigger. There's a different style to it. And I think the defense will be better than it was last year, certainly at the end of last year when it was Brady Shea and a bunch of AHL guys. Okay. So there's no doubt they're better than that. How good are they? That's going to be the question. Like, is Nick Hague actually a top 4 defenseman? Is Roman Josi playing like a top pair defenseman this year? Is he healthy? Is Justin Barron taking a big step forward, which I think they're counting on? I think they believe that he can take a big step forward from where he was last year. Well, if all those things happen, then they're probably going to have pretty good defense. If they don't, then they're going to be okay on defense, and not very dangerous down the middle is not a very good combo in the NHL.
Unless you have the best goaltender in the league.
Yeah.
So there you go. So just have that, and you're fine.
Yeah.
Barry Trotz, like you said, he mentioned his experience as a coach, and obviously he's known as a great defensive coach. I mean, look, he's a Hall of Fame coach. It does feel like you think about the real grinding seasons and teams. I mean, it's not like they won; they just maybe won more than you would have thought.
That's
right?
it.
I mean, like they hung in closer than the talent level suggested they should have.
I agree. Like Doherty said earlier, like the first 5 years, the results weren't good, which they weren't. Like, it's not like the Predators as an expansion team were making the playoffs.
It's a different time for expansion
I do
teams.
think that in many of those years to begin with, they were better than they probably should have been, given the roster that they had. So, I mean, you can think of that what you will. How much does that matter at the end of the day? I don't know. But I think that was Trotz's point yesterday.
Yeah. And look, it's not, I understand if you're a Preds fan, you're spending money to go see him play. It's probably not exciting to hear. Just play better D, and we'll grind our way to more wins. But if they win, it'll be, then you'll feel better about it if they actually win more.
And, I've heard people say that they don't want Svechkov playing second line center, which I understand. But given the options they have right now, I mean, he's absolutely who I would put at second line center. Like, who I don't want to see playing second line center? Eric Halla.
Right.
I don't want to see Eric Halla playing second line center. I mean, Michael McCarron's not even going to be a thought to play second line center. So, like, I would rather see Svechkov there to start and take a chance with it and see if they can find something there, rather than just doing the easy thing and plugging Eric Halla in with Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, we know and have known for a long time what Eric Halla is. And like you said, he wasn't good last year. At least with Svechkov, like there's still hopefully room to grow.
Hopefully a lot of room to grow. I mean, look, Stamkos is generally pretty honest with his assessment of things. And one thing he kept talking about with Svechkov last year, he was like, he just has an element that we just don't have a whole lot of, and that is straight line speed. Like, he's got straight line speed that can open some things up coming up the middle. So maybe harnessing that this year and him learning he's got to get way better with his faceoffs. We know that. And that is where Stamkos can step in and help. Like, if he's playing with Stamkos, Svechkov doesn't have to take every faceoff. Stamkos can step in and take some faceoffs. And, he's still 21 years old. Like, he's growing still, and physically, I think that's the part you feel good about Svechkov. Like, physically, he's pretty stout. So he's not going to get pushed around out there. So maybe he's ready in year 2 in the NHL to take a significant jump. I would rather see them try that than just sticking Eric Hall out there at center to play with Stamkos.
Like, if it gets to that,
well, you're up a creek.
Yeah.
Like, and look, Eric Hall, I've said it with the moment when they signed him. He's a fine player. He has been a fine player throughout his career. He's 34. The numbers suggest he took a pretty significant step back last year. So was that a one-year thing? Could he rebound this year? We'll see. Or is he just headed downward? Like, it feels like some more of this roster might be.
Yeah.
615-737.
He's younger than some people, though.
He is. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. More of your thoughts to get to on the Predators. Plus, how realistic is it that Brady Martin could play for this team this year as an 18-year-old? We'll get into all that. Coming up next, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trenton Texas Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on all things Nashville Predators. One texter says, we keep talking defense. Did we forget we couldn't get pucks in the net either? They need these older guys to have career years like they were supposed to have last year. Didn't work out last year. Hey, look, let's be honest here. Steven Stamkos is not going to have a career year here with the Predators. You know, his career year involves scoring 60 goals.
That'd be pretty.
That ain't happening.
Pretty high level.
It's not happening here with the Predators. Jonathan Marchessault is probably not having a career year here either. Like Marchessault, we said it at the time when they signed him last year. If you were forcing me to identify somebody who was not going to replicate 40 goals again, he would have been the guy because he's only done it once. He has basically been a 25 goal guy, 25 to 28 goal guy for most of his career. And then in 23-24, he had 42 goals and 69 points. Now last year, like the point total that Marchessault had last year is pretty close to what he's been for the majority of his career, right? He was 56 points last year. He's had a 51-point year. He's had a 59-point year. He's had a 57-point year. Like he's kind of been right in that territory. Now, it is worth pointing out that his career year from a point total standpoint was 75 his first year with Vegas, where they just went immediately to the Cup final. So there is that. But I mean, it wasn't from a strictly point total year last year, all that misrepresentative of what he's been. I'm not a huge plus minus guy in terms of stats. Like there's some deep flaws with the plus minus stat. But I will say, like, when you're as much on the plus one way or as much on the minus one way, like I pay attention to that. And Marchessault is a minus 29 last year. And I think Steven Stamkos was worse than that. I'll pull up his number. His Steven Stamkos last year was a minus 36. So, I mean, again, there are flaws with that stat, but when it's that far one way or the other, it does, I think, tell you a little bit of something.
Yeah. That's kind of the depressing thing, what you laid out there with Marchessault is it's like you think about how bad it was overall and you think about his complaining or, being frank, being honest, whatever, you like it or don't, whatever, but that's what you think about. But like, it's not like it was some insanely bad season for him, like in terms of production.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he may have been, he was kind of the tack on, I guess, right? Last year, but it was like, wow. And Marchessault, Stamkos was the huge.
Right. Well, Stamkos is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Right. Like Stamkos is one of the best players of this generation. Like, Stamkos is not Sidney Crosby and he's not Alex Ovechkin and he's not Connor McDavid and all that. But Stamkos is a first ballot Hall of Famer and a guy that's going to end up with over 600 goals in the NHL in his career. So, like, I understand the excitement level there. Like, and I saw somebody tweet about this the other day. Even though it has not really worked to this point, like Stamkos is still one of those guys at, 15, 20 years from now where you'll look back and say, hey, Steven Stamkos played for this team. In the same way people do with Paul Kariya and the same way people do with Peter Forsberg.
Yeah.
He's that caliber of player. Yeah. So that makes it a little bit different. But now in the short term, nobody cares about that. How much is he going to produce next year?
Can he help you win?
Well, can he help you win? And with the lack of what they've got at center right now, how much better can it get from last year? Because I do think some of last year, not all, but some of last year was coaching. You got to make some adjustments there if you're Andrew Brunette. Some of last year, I'm sure, was an absolute whirlwind going from Tampa to Nashville and everything involved with that. Same thing with Marchessault from Vegas. You would think that there would naturally be in year two of that a little bit more comfort and a little bit more of an easy thing. I think Andrew Brunette used the term yesterday that this is their team. Like that, it's not, they're not worried about Tampa anymore, not worried about Vegas. This is their team. So I think that's going to help to some degree. How much is going to be the question. And you have all that, and then you also have to tack on the fact that now they're a year older. So what does that mean?
Exactly. Liam McLeod says, sounds like another lost season oscillating between bad and boring. Glad I'm only throwing money away on one bad franchise in town. So I guess that means you're throwing money away on the Titans. G from Murfreesboro, this is an old team. It's just going to regress. It's going to be a long year. And what we've seen of Roman last year, it's just going to be that or worse going forward. I mean, I think you guys, I'm not going to argue with any of that. And I am concerned about that.
Yep.
Yossi, his availability, start there. Okay. Sounds like it's all optimistic right now. But then also level of play
right
after the wear and tear. The guy's played a lot of high level, high impact hockey in this league.
Well, and he's 35. This should not be the Potts diagnosis aside, because that came out of nowhere. And obviously there's been a concussion concern. So those two things, they're their own thing. But even beyond those things, he's 35. We should not expect Roman Josi at age 35 to be the same player he was at 29. It just, for the most part, does not work that way in the NHL.
They're in an era right now where there needs to be young guys moving up,
stepping up,
take these spots. And someone asked earlier about we've heard about Milwaukee. Where are they? Kemmel, is Joachim Kemmel going to be a factor this year? Is he going to matter?
He needs to be.
Is Svechkov going to make a huge step? I mean, he's got an incredible opportunity. And I remember last year, we're talking about a guy, an incredible opportunity. Not sure he's a number 2 center, but he's got an incredible opportunity. And that lasted not long at all before you're like, yeah, that's just not going to work.
It's not going to go. Lasted about a period for me. Joel from Woodbury.
I don't think it lasted that long.
Joel from Woodbury on the text line says, I don't get the panic either. They turn it around great. We don't suck. If not, we're firmly in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes. It's a win-win in my book.
Everything is awesome.
I'm glad you feel that way. I would imagine Andrew Brunette does not feel that way.
Until you lose the lottery.
Yeah, until you lose the lottery and you're picking 5th again, which, again, you get a good player. But
yeah, remember this year they picked 2 spots below where they finished.
Right.
So, above 2, below. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Worse.
Yes, worse.
Worse.
Badder.
If they're bad again, what's it going to mean for Andrew Brunette? Because fair or unfair, he is going to be the first one that pays the price, right? It's
traditionally
he's
speaking.
I'm
willing to just keep an eye on Barry Trotz. Say, hey man, you do your thing. You don't have to do what everybody else does, but yeah, you would think so.
I mean, I guess behind the scenes of all of that, and I'm reading the piece at the Tennessean about him this morning, but I mean, Bill Haslam has now taken control, so he is starting now, controlling owner of the Nashville Predators. He's moved into that spot. It was approved by the Board of Governors and all that stuff. So he's in. So what does that mean for, not that he hasn't been, directly involved with them the last couple of years, but what does that mean towards how he views it, the patience level, and where he thinks things are going? Because at the end of the day, isn't that what matters? Like we talk about with the Titans all the time, the only thing that really matters is what Amy's going to do. Well, Bill Haslam is now that role for the Predators.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Paul Scorbina. Good piece in the Tennessean on him, and some interesting stuff in there. And yeah, I think this could signal that the Preds are going to be more like a traditional franchise moving forward. I don't know that, but when you have someone like him, and we know what has gone on with saving the franchise and all that stuff, I think when you now consolidate into Bill Haslam, I think maybe we'll see, I guess, frankly, just more change over a certain period of time after an incredible amount of time of stability and no change.
615-737-1025, our phone number. A whole lot more of your thoughts to get to on the Predators. We will do that coming next. We will get to Brady Martin and his chances to make the team as well. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I got some tickets to give away, a 4-pack of tickets to see the Sounds take on Memphis at First Horizon Park tomorrow. First pitch is 6 o'clock. Be caller number 4, 615-737-1025. Caller 4 will win a 4-pack of tickets to the Sounds taking on the Redbirds at First Horizon Park tomorrow. A little bit of July 3rd action coming down tomorrow, so
Nice.
have fun out there at the Sounds game. 615-737-1025. A lot of thoughts still rolling in on the Predators. We'll get to some of those now on our phone line, our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Matt asking, how could all of these accomplished and talented players come to Nashville and not do very well and it not be a coaching or culture issue? And here's what I would say to that. Number one, it may very well be partly a coaching issue. You know, I mean, look, when you have a season as bad as you did last year, I've said it, I stand by it. Most organizations probably would have fired the coach. It just is what it is in the NHL. The Predators did not. The Predators traditionally have been a more patient organization, and specifically Barry Trotz with the way that he came up and the patience that was extended to him from David Poile. I always figured that would probably be the way he would operate as a general manager. So here we are on that front. It may become very obvious 10, 15 games into this year that maybe Andrew Burnett's not the right guy. We'll see. It may be that he's able to turn around. You know, the culture issue is interesting. We talked about that yesterday, Joe. Like, do the Predators have a problem with their approach or the way that they prioritize things or focusing too much on like the grit and the grind of it? Is that a problem with the Predators? I think that's up for debate and a matter of opinion. But I also think sometimes we get a little too narrow-minded and simplistic with these views. It's like, well, Stamkos was great in Tampa and Marchessault was great in Vegas, and they came here and aren't good, so it's got to be a Predators problem. And I would say, well, maybe that's probably part of it. I would also remind you that Steven Stamkos did not get the contract he was looking for from the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you cannot find very many people in the NHL, and in some ways the history of the NHL. It's not a long list, is what I'm saying, of teams or of players that have meant more to their team than Steven Stamkos. Right. I mean, again, he's not Sidney Crosby. He's not Wayne Gretzky. He's not any of those guys. But he is one of the greatest goal scorers of his generation. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He is a captain from Tampa Bay and was their franchise icon. And he could not get the contract he was looking for from the Lightning. Jonathan Marchessault, you know, icon for Vegas. I mean, I guess you could go there. They've been around for less than a decade. So take it what you will for the icon part of it. He won a Stanley Cup and was the playoff MVP with Vegas. There's a lot of attraction to him in that fan base with that franchise. And he could not get the contract that he was looking for from Vegas. So I think sometimes we just forget about that and say, well, it must be the Predators just, they come here and it's a coaching problem because those guys were so productive and now they're not. And some of it may just be that they're 34 and 35 years old, right? Like there's a difference between 35-year-old Steven Stamkos and 27-year-old Steven Stamkos. Those are two very different things. And I think you have to keep that in mind.
So
as part of the conversation.
So you're saying that Barry Trotz is the problem?
Well, look, maybe. I don't know. It's not been a good run, right? It's been a year now of we talked about it yesterday. Think about the show we were having on this day a year ago.
Yeah.
This day a year ago, they had just signed all these guys, and Predators fans were all over the place excited about it. I know, like, ticket sales were going great. Mm-hmm. Everything was looking good. And think about where it is now. And, one of the things we talked about on the show a year ago today is somebody's going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong when it comes to Stamkos and Marchessault. And the early returns are Vegas and Tampa Bay was right. We'll see.
Yeah, we did spend a little bit of time. And, of course, this was also not too far. It was like a year removed from the Jeannot trade. But we were spending some time ripping Tampa too, right, for what they were doing, like Gensel and, all this stuff. So that makes us professional second guessers because, of course, now we're sitting here. But when, seriously with Trotz, like you look at is he going to be right? Well, like with coaching, right? He kind of hung on a little bit with John Hines, who was pretty good last year at Minnesota, by the way. and he went to Brunette. Was he right making that move? Is he right sticking with him now? There's a lot of things that are still up in the air on Barry Trotz, of course. And look, someone texted today what Jared has been arguing, which is if you're not trading assets for, you're just going and signing veterans, then you still are sticking with the plan of, the prospects and an overall long-term plan. And I half agree with that, but it's not the full picture. And I mean, Barry has said himself, right? Like, I don't know, like he's trying to win now.
Yeah.
Again, like the goalie contract flies in the face of all that stuff. But
well, again,
that's another one.
That's
Is he right on that? That's a huge question.
It's on the surface, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to remain competitive and also trying to stock up and build for the future at the same time.
Agree.
It's just very difficult to get those timelines to match up. And that's where they're at. And that's why I think the biggest problem with this team, and they've taken some, in my opinion, I guess, minor steps to address that in free agency. But the biggest problem with the team in the construction of it is not really I don't really have a problem with the idea of trying to remain competitive and wait on some of your young guys, but I have less of a problem with that idea when you're trying to remain competitive with 27, 28, 29-year-olds and not 34, 35, 36-year-olds, right? Like, it's hard to get that timeline where Stamkos, Marchessault, Yossi, O'Reilly, those type of guys are toward the end of their career. And then you've got Svechkov and Kemmel and Molendijk and all these guys at the very beginning.
It speaks to a huge gap.
There's a huge gap.
And by the way, that's not most of it's not on Trotz, right? And that's what
and that's what happens when you go years without having successful draft pick. And again, some of that is you're going for it back in the day, and it catches up with you at some point. I agree with those people who say that Trotz is not like all out going for it right now. He's not giving up first round picks. He's not trading Joachim Kimmel to go find somebody to help you now. So I understand that part of it, but it's still, I look at it and it's just such a difficult needle to thread to get all of those timelines to merge together when you don't have that centerman who's 27 years old, or you don't have, that next defenseman coming up that's Roman Yossi, like that's 26, 27. Like Molendijk, who knows? Molendijk may end up being that. But Molendijk's 20 years old right now. Yeah. Like it's going to take a while.
But see, that's also why to me, that's why you do go for it. And I'm not saying recklessly, but that's why you do go for it, because you inherited, okay, what do I have? I've got a great player in Forsberg. I got a great player in Yossi. I've got what I think is a great goalie, UC Saros. Well, as soon as the first offseason, when you bring in O'Reilly stuff, to me, then like, okay, well, then you should actually go rather than, let's just be happy making the playoffs, right? That's a needle to thread too. And a lot of times what you can do, you can't do anything other than, we can get a Stamkos because, Tampa is not going to meet his demands. And so we got an opportunity.
Well, and the bottom line also is, and we've talked about this, I understand that they've not given up a ton of draft capital or prospects in this process here. But also, like, I agree with Adam Vingan when you say, like, you don't really sign Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and to a lesser extent, Brady Shea to buy time.
Exactly.
Like, those guys, I can tell you, those guys certainly were not sold on the idea of buying time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come be okay here for a while, and while we have young kids come up. No, they want to win.
And look, I'm interested to see how it goes. This time last year, and people brought this up, and it's a fair point. This time last year, everybody was convinced that the Predators were going to be good, and the idea of them missing the playoffs, much less missing the playoffs to the degree in which they just did, was laughable to most people. Let's see how it plays out. Maybe they do find some tweaks in the way that they want to play, and they're just instantaneously better this year, and they don't get off to an 0-5 start, and they don't feel all this pressure. And Brunette was talking about that yesterday, how they got a chip on their shoulder. We'll see how all that goes. Maybe all that's better, and they are a playoff team. But I still look at their roster right now, particularly down the middle, and I say it's hard to imagine them doing much damage with that group that they've got down the middle. And to think about that in the aftermath of signing Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea is disappointing if you're a Predators fan.
Yeah, it's it's hard for me to be optimistic. You do have to acknowledge that there are in all sports, sometimes you start out hot and you get a good feeling, and it's amazing how that can change a season, how that can dictate a season. There are a lot of guys I still think that can play a lot better than they did last year. Can they collectively play better?
But to your point, you know what all that sounds like? Hope.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit flimsy.
Yeah.
At that.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Trots with some comments on Brady Martin that we will finally get to coming up next. I will do that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/getitall. We will have Predators head coach Andrew Brunette on the show tomorrow at 8:15, so looking forward to that conversation with him. We talked about the center depth for the Predators a lot today. They did just draft a center at Brady Martin at number 5 overall. He's at development camp this week. Watched him out there so far this week on Monday. Looked really good. It's practice, so I'm not going to sit here and overblow things that happen at a development camp practice in June and July. So he looks good. That's where I'll leave it at right now. We'll see what that means for the NHL part of this moving forward. But I did ask Barry Trotz yesterday about Brady Martin, the idea of him making the team as an 18-year-old, and how much of an open mind Trotz has for that. Here's what Barry Trotz said yesterday.
This young man, nothing would surprise me. This guy he's got tons of confidence. I think he's a guy that pulls you into the fight. Someone was asking me, who you remind me of. Sometimes I show my age, but he's got the Bobby Clark-ish type of mentality. He's got more skill than you thought. He will hurt you. He will pull guys into the fight. All those things that make you, your team better when it matters. And he steps up when it matters. So, he had a chance at training camp to step up and it was funny. He came in and he saw, Dwight McCarron pop by, and he's like, I got to go against him. Yes, you do. And he goes, no problem. So I think you got to be excited. I think our fan base, you're going to love this kid. I know you are. I bet my life on that.
So Barry Trout's betting his life on the fan base loving Brady Martin. Look, everything I know about the kid after talking with him the other day, I have no doubt about that. Like, I think he's going to be a good player, and personality-wise and all that, the way he plays, I think Predators fans will love him. Now the question is going to be exactly how good is he? We're going to find out. But that it does not sound to me, I don't think it's just lip service. Like, I think Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette are going to give Brady Martin a legitimate opportunity to make the team. I think sometimes coaches and general managers say that because, what else are they going to say? They're going to tell somebody, hey, by the way, coming into camp, you have no shot to make the team. But deep down, they know they're probably not going to make it, and there's probably not a spot for them. I would still, if I had to assign a percentage to it, Joe, I would say that the more likely result is he doesn't make the team and he's going back to junior this year. But I think there will be a look given to Brady Martin in training camp, and we'll see what he can do with it and if he's ready.
Yeah, Adam from Portland. I'm not going to yell at you this time, Adam. He did texted a little bit ago saying, like, what's the concern with him playing, just playing with the Preds, that he's going to get hurt? And no, the answer is, you think about it like in different sports. Hockey and baseball to me are the two sports where here and there, you'll have someone like, oh, you're ready, or a late call up as a first year in the pros in baseball or whatever. And sometimes in hockey, for the most part, like, you have the minor leagues for a reason, and there needs to be a lot of development. Obviously, basketball, football, you plug a guy in from college or overseas, and boom, they're ready to go in the draft. I know when you go back and forth between those sports, sometimes it can get probably confusing, but it doesn't. It seems like asking a lot, especially, again, it's like, okay, so you have him up, you like him a lot, but are you ready for him to play the role that you've drafted him to play for a long time? And if you put him in that role too early, and you've got, look, Barry Trotz is basically telling people he's going to be a captain someday. Right? Yeah. He loves him. But, like, if you put him in that role too early, or just bring him up too early, are you worried about that causing harm or damage? It happens all the time in baseball too, like with pitchers, right? It's like, or position players, like, you ruin them. You can't bring the kid up too early. Is that a concern? Barry Trotz certainly talks about overcooking all the time.
Yeah, physically, he may not be ready to play it. I'm not necessarily talking about a physicality standpoint of it, but from a skill set standpoint, like, there may need to be some more development time and some time to work on the skill part of it, where he's just not ready to play. in the NHL. Like if I'm a Predators fan,
It's the highest level of hockey in the world.
yeah, like if I'm a Predators fan, obviously the idea of him playing for you in the fall is exciting. I think a lot of Predators fans want to see it. I think a lot of Predators fans look at the roster right now, particularly at center, and are like, good Lord, give me something to watch at center ice. So I understand that. But also, if I'm a Predators fan, I want Brady Martin to take whatever path makes the most sense for him to be a franchise player for me one day. That is what I want. And if that's coming up in the NHL right now, great. If that's spending another 2 years in junior, great. Whatever. Knock yourself out. Whatever the path is that makes the most sense, that's going to lead to him developing into what you've drafted him to be, and that is a franchise-changing type of player. That's what I want if I'm a Predators fan.
And by the way, we were just talked yesterday a lot about the organization, the whole thing, the culture, like what's wrong? Like why aren't guys developing? Why are some players going elsewhere and doing a lot better? When they come here, they don't do all that stuff. I will say that like the forward history with this franchise, Brady Martin better work out, man. Like it's almost to me, I mean, I know it's ridiculous. That's the last straw, but like seriously, if Brady Martin does end up being a good pick, at least a good pick, at least like you feel good about him as your number 2 centerman for 10 years. What else can you say about their inability to identify forwards?
Totally. No, I totally agree. And there, you can pick your spots in Predators history where there have been some good stories, mainly with later draft picks that have turned into some good players. They need to draft and develop a high-level player. That's what Brady Martin needs to end up
down
being.
the middle in particular,
which frankly they've never done. Legwand was okay down the middle, but that's not what I'm talking about.
It's a long time.
Yeah, he played here for a long time, but I'm not talking about Brady Martin turning into David Legwand.
And the Preds have been here a long time.
Yeah,
for
sure.
It's about time, right?
That's going to do it for us today. Chasing Big Joe's coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.